journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Hey there, Malcontents. This here is David the Malcontent, and we have literally been setting things up right up to the very last second. So you get to see me all of a sudden going, I have to mic up. And at some break, I'm going to snake.
I'm a little tired. I've been working with numbers all day, which is not my thing. I'm a historian, so like my brain is slightly fried.
Yes, my brain is slightly fried also. I guess what some of the Malcontents couldn't hear, we were setting up this show at 7:57 and 15 seconds. We were still setting things up. That's why when you saw me to get on, and why I have the cord on the outside right now. When we get to a video clip, I'll mute the microphone. By the way, we have mute buttons. You're going to have to roll with it a little tonight. Jennifer, we got a lot to cover, and it's kind of a heavy-duty show, so why don't we just jump into it tonight?
Okay.
There's an exodus going on from the Seattle Police Department. It continues for the first 3 months of 2021. 58 more officers have left. That's 200 officers approximately that have left in the last 18 months. If the positions go unfilled, some of the city council want to grab that payroll money, about $13 million, and reallocate it for other things. Seattle right now, according to Acting Chief Diaz, has 1,080 officers on the payroll, and they continue to say that they cannot respond to things that are going on right now.
And that just kind of goes back to the question we've been asking candidates about this, mayoral candidates addressing like budget cuts and things, even though there's still a fair amount of police officers on the payroll, but they're complaining about being understaffed and slow response times. But, I don't feel bad about this mass exodus of police officers from Seattle. So bye.
One of the things that jumps out at me is we go back to April 20th when the ratio to officers and protesters was 1-to-1, if not 1.25 officers to protesters. So whenever there's a protest going on, Seattle Police has no problem mustering a large number of police officers.
Yeah, apparently it's selectional staffing. I don't know, selectional response.
I don't know. I know you've got some story about fireworks.
Fireworks. I love fireworks, but I also know we have a big fire season coming up. So all fireworks are banned in unincorporated King County, and this passed the city council 5-4. Joins 25 communities that already ban fireworks. Every community in King County has some firework restrictions, and it's been supported by police, sheriff, and fire departments. Last year, 2 house fires resulted in 1 death as a result of fireworks, and the ban starts not this year, but in 2022.
Dr. Mrs. Malcontent, I know, has an opinion on this because working at our trauma center, she doesn't visit with people who don't use fireworks the right way on the 4th, 5th, or 6th after the 4th of July. She visits with them 1 or 2 weeks later when they're going through their 3rd, 4th, 5th surgeries and attempting to reconstruct their face or reconstruct their hands. And they do literally dozens of these every year at the hospitals. And one thing to caveat, that isn't just all King County. That could be somebody in Idaho. It could even be somebody in Alaska. They get flown down here into our trauma centers. She's not the biggest fan of fireworks, although we always like to say that time of the year, the hold my beer and watch this set do help pay the bills at this house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think I'm not a hands-on fireworks kind of person. I do like to watch them from afar, but people do, especially when you mix alcohol and fireworks, people do kind of dumb things.
Yes, I was an EMT down in Texas where fireworks are, and living in at that time in an area where it was like fireworks, whatever you want to do, man. If you could buy a small thermonuclear weapon, it'd be cool. Let's set it off. Jennifer, every year there'd be one person, every friggin' year they'd set off a mortar. It wouldn't go off. They would literally walk up to it, put their head looking down in the tube, and you know what happens next. Yep. One call that we got, that was like, they literally told us over the radio, you can take your time. You're going there to clean up a mess every flipping year. There's a story out of Auburn about a DoorDash delivery driver. They're black. They finished the delivery on Avenue A out in Auburn. Then a red pickup truck boxes them in. Second pickup truck comes. Red pickup truck rams his car. His car's dented with red paint on it. He calls 911 at that point. While he's on the phone with 911, they start shooting at him. There's 2 bullet holes in his car. One's in the A-pillar, which is the pillar closest to the windshield. The other one is in the back door. Auburn police come afterwards, and they start treating him like a criminal. They want to know, what was he doing in the neighborhood? He's like, I'm a DoorDash delivery dude. I'm delivering food. They're asking him if he was selling drugs. They wanted permission to search his car. Nice way to treat a victim of gun violence. Cairo has reported on this story, and they have made a public information request for the police records and the 911 call. Police went on to say that, they got reports of him zigzagging through traffic, and he was like, yes, that was me trying to escape the red pickup truck and the people shooting at me. Yeah.
We got a real big police problem and a real big white supremacy problem in this country. And funnily, oddly enough, they tend to be interconnected.
They do. Jennifer, I know we have a theme on tonight's show. It's not a theme that we want. And I know that there's a TikTok video you wanted to tell us about.
Yes. So the user is Memnock. Okay.
Memnock, I think. Yeah, that's how we'll throw a dart.
So sure. It's MEMNOQ if somebody wants to look it up. He's a retired training officer with the Honolulu Police Department. And in this video, he actually talks about how the training bar for police officers is far too low.
Hello, and how do you do, TikTok family? Do you have any idea the training standards that the police department that services your community has? In other words, that officer that just drove past your house. Do you know how he did in the academy when he graduated? Now, most police departments only require a 70 percentile to pass their academy. Now, there's 2 different areas that they have to pass. One is academic, so constitutional law, local laws, things like that. They're going to have to write down. And there's the functionality tests, such as driving, shooting, grappling, tasering, all the ings. And if you have an officer who skates by the entire academy with 70 percentiles across the board, and I've seen it many times, that's the officer you're going to get on the road. Now think about it this way. He's been in training for 6 months, every single day. Still, all we get is 70% out of that guy. Now we put that person on the road, no more training except once a year. Do you think that person's really out there bettering themselves? They're a 70 percentile officer. What do you think's happening with that other 30%?
And what do you think is happening with that other 30%? I think we know the story.
Yeah, no, and 70% is basically the bare minimum of anything. I teach college history courses, 70% is passing, but it's like a C minus, and it basically means you've done the bare minimum to pass my class. So bare minimum in this context, when you have weapons, when you're an authority figure, that's not good enough. That should not cut it.
And an example of a 70% officer, Jennifer, is the officer who shot Tamir Rice.
Yeah, exactly. That's unacceptable.
Memnock, we're guessing that's how they go by, or it could be MEMNOQ, retired Honolulu training officer, and does a ton. They're I would call them an influencer on TikTok. They do a ton of videos. Jennifer, are you ready to start to do land acknowledgement? And we're probably going to need to adjust your camera, or if you're wearing heels, maybe if you just go flat-footed, that might do it. So, but let's go ahead and do the land acknowledgement, and we'll get going.
Okay. Malcontent News comes to lands. The lands for the waters of both sides of bands within the waters, the Layla, and the nations. This land acknowledgement is but one small gesture in the ongoing process of working towards repairing and Salish lands, waters, people, and their other than human kin.
Jennifer, for the second time in a row, your audio glitched out in the middle of the land acknowledgement. I don't know what our streaming service has against the land acknowledgement.
It's right here in my hands. I read it.
It wasn't on our side. That was the internet, y'all. All right, this is the part of the show where we tell you spam those hearts. Let the algorithm on Twitter and Facebook know there is great content here. If you are watching us on Twitch or YouTube and you can't spam those hearts, you do a big long line of hearts, or say, love you mods, love you admins, love you researchers, love you Jennifer David, not in a creepy way.
Not in a creepy way.
Not in a creepy way. Jennifer,
Please.
With that, let's go ahead and dive into story number one.
Okay.
King County. We done all messed this up. Next evaluation by the state of Washington on whether we stay on phase 3 is coming up this Sunday, and the numbers look really bad. We've had this story up on our website. They look really bleak. 236 cases per 100,000 residents and 5.7 hospitalizations per 100,000 residents. 1.0 cases per infection. That means that COVID is spreading, albeit it is spreading slowly. You want that number below 1. 1.06 isn't horrible, but we don't want to be above 1, and we shouldn't be above 1 at this point. In order to stay in phase 3, remember I said 236 and 5.7? We need to be under 200, and we need to be under 5.0. And the numbers are going this way. They're not going that way. So it's not good. Snohomish County is no better. Pierce County is probably safe from going back to phase 1, However, Pierce County has almost no hope of going up to phase 3, and their numbers have gotten worse. As a matter of fact, 14 Washington counties, all of our populated areas, with the exception of Vancouver, Clark County is the only exception, are all looking at going backwards at this point. So if we consider like Spokane, Bellingham, actually, no, I take Bellingham back. Bellingham, no. But if we look at, say, Spokane, Yakima, Tri-Cities, Moses Lake, all of these areas look to be heading to going backwards. There is a bunch of reasons why we're seeing this increase. There's flat out COVID fatigue. People are just exhausted of not seeing people, not shaking hands, not hugging, not doing things that human beings kind of need to do to thrive. The B117, that's the UK variant, is about 2 times more contagious than the previous dominant strain, and B117 is now the dominant strain. We've had a slow rollout of vaccination in our states, and some experts are feeling we moved too fast into phase 3. On March 22nd, our cases and hospitalization numbers were already going up, and they have just gone steadily up from that date. The other thing they're saying is sporting events, other activities, and close contact. Biggest impact to this, Jennifer, is going to be indoor activity will go from 50% to 25%. Restaurants, gyms, yoga studios, bars. Apparently, theaters are going to be allowed to stay open, but they will have to go to 25% capacity. In Pierce County, where they rolled back on April 16th, business for restaurants and other businesses such dropped by 25%. So it's been pretty devastating. COVID disproportionately impacts the BIPOC community. And here in Washington state, it is the Latinx populations that have really borne the brunt of COVID infections and COVID deaths when you look at percentage of population versus percentage of infections.
Yeah, and let's talk about why that is. And that's because so many of them are seasonal farm workers working in close proximity to each other and trying to push out and give people the produce and items that they need. So let's go back to this whole idea of like, let's seize the means of production, people. This is like a perfect example of racial capitalism. But I think the bigger thing we need to be thinking about, because we're not in isolation here, in other places across the country, they're experiencing similar issues. So now what is the presidential administration going to do about this? Are they going to provide more economic stimulus? I know there's been talk about a fourth stimulus check, but a lot of resistance to that, because this is going to be rolling back again and restricting people is going to cause layoffs. It's going to have a ton of economic implications that could profoundly affect the broader national economy, not only the local economy. And so that's going to, really, I think, put pressure on the presidential administration and Congress and the government more broadly to provide additional economic stimulus.
Thousands of vaccine dose slots are available with people not taking the appointments across the state of Washington. Literally thousands of appointments. I saw a message on one of the Facebook groups that I poke my head in from time to time. And there was an appeal up there that, like, if you go right now, you will get a shot. They are less than an hour away from having to throw these doses out.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those, actually. And it only took me, even being in Seattle, I only had to drive about 30 minutes for my first vaccine. But it took me all of about an hour of refreshing to get a vaccine south of us. So, I mean, it's not difficult to find, but then again, too, we have the CDC, basically saying if you've been double vaccinated, you can take your mask off now, which is how do we police that?
Exactly. And frankly, I don't want to take my mask off out in public and be confused with a
cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
Exactly.
So I'm still wearing my mask outside. We'll see what happens on May 2nd. It'll be announced on May 3rd. If we go back, and it really is more of a when, because King County Health has already told business owners and leaders, get ready to go to phase 2 because it's happening.
Yeah.
We'll know on May 3rd. If it does happen, the go back is on May 6th.
Yep.
All right. With that, we're going to do a little pause for the cause, and then we'll move on to our next story.
Okay.
Jennifer, we're learning a lot more about the stabbing that happened in Bothell over the weekend that resulted in the fatality of a Asian American. John Huynh, 29, was stabbed to death in front of multiple witnesses. His accused killer is 25-year-old Ian Patrick Williams. He is being held in King County Jail for investigation of second-degree murder. Witnesses say there was no fight. The two have never met. They don't know each other. Williams gave Huynh the finger. Huynh asked him, "What's wrong with you?" And Huynh was stabbed in the heart and basically died on the spot.
How many times are we going to have to talk about the long history of hatred of people who come from countries in Asia, particularly in this region? How many times do we need to point back? Isn't the anniversary of Japanese internment camps coming up soon? I believe it is. I teach Pacific Northwest history. I feel like I should know this off the top of my head, but I'm a little tired. But the hatred of and perpetuation of hate and violence against Asian people in the Pacific Northwest and the North American West more broadly has been taking place since the 1850s. We have this, emergence of the model minority, which we've talked about at length on this show, but that didn't really mitigate the issue. All it did was create animosity and resentment. And here we're back to this violence, and people act like it's new. It's not new. Read a goddamn book. I can give you 10. This has been going on since the 1850s. Chinese people came as laborers. They were sojourners. They didn't want to stay. They wanted to make money and go back to their home country and their families. They ended up staying because there was opportunity that white men didn't want to seize on because they were too entitled and didn't want to do those kinds of jobs. And so when they were hired and white men became angry, rather than pointing to the fact that you guys don't really want to do these jobs or we're paying them less money, they turned their anger towards these people who were doing these jobs only trying to make money so they could return home. That hatred lingers.
Yeah. A stranger murdering another person unprovoked by stabbing is actually very rare. Williams claimed that Huynh was an anti-masker and that Huynh attacked him, but there is nothing from multiple witnesses that reported seeing this that have no connection to either Williams or Huynh that supports the story that they got in an argument over masks.
Yeah, we have a huge problem with white supremacy in this country, mostly because it's what the goddamn nation was founded upon. So, it's like, in order for white men to stay in power, it's always been excused to, random acts of violence. And so they're going to find some way, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong, to write this off as something else and not a hate crime.
Well, of interest, a page between investigators and King County prosecutors that would reveal if this is being investigated as a hate crime disappeared between the prosecutor's office and the Bothell Police Department. And as we know, and as we've reported, just as the Auburn Police Department has some issues, we've reported that the Bothell Police Department has some issues.
You know what the difference between white supremacy and our policing right now in this country is?
You're going to tell us.
This slim. There's no difference. They're holding hands, literally.
Over $40,000 has been raised on a GoFundMe so that Huynh can go back to Pennsylvania, where his family's from, to be buried. So the other one is also out in Rainier Beach. We have the issue that happened with Earl Estrella. Renee Rackety, our field producer, caught some video in the moment after this happened. This is a silent clip, so we're going to be talking kind of as this clip's rolling. Consider it us trying something experimental tonight. Earl was just 16. He answered the door right before 11 o'clock at night. and he was shot. He is the 17th homicide in King County for 2021. He is Latinx and Filipino. Right now, they're saying there is no motive. There are no leads. If there are leads, the police are not sharing it at this point. It's not even known if Estrella was the intended target or knew the person that shot him. And there is no idea if this was a bias crime or not, or had anything to do with race or nationality. There is also a GoFundMe that has been set up for that one, Jennifer. That GoFundMe has raised $27,000 for his funeral expenses.
God. He's a kid. 16-year-old kid. Let's just go back to phase one. There was less violence. Take it back. Lock everybody up because apparently people can't handle any kind of freedom out here. So
it's a terrible issue.
It is.
And I know that probably some people are going to lecture and go, well, you were saying there's only 1,080 police officers in Seattle, and you're happy about that. But we also talked about Bothell, and Bothell doesn't have this issue. Mm-hmm. And look at what's going on in Kent, Renton, Auburn, down Federal Way, down in the South Sound or South King County. And that is kind of where this concentration of gun violence is. Let's see, 17 shootings. When I last checked for this story with Earl Estrella, I believe there were 8 shootings in Seattle. That means a majority of the shootings in King County aren't in the city of Seattle.
Yeah.
Not that that's anything to celebrate.
No, it's not. But still.
We'll keep tracking these stories. We'll do a little pause for the cause, and then we're going to move to our next section.
Yep.
Hi, Malcontents. I'm David, the Malcontent, and I'd like to talk to you for a moment about supporting independent media. When you support us, you help us bring the before, during, and after. You help us defend the First Amendment. You help us amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices, and you help us hold leaderships at a local, state, and federal level accountable. None of this would be possible without support by viewers just like you. When you become a patron for as little as $5 a month, you help buy technology, safety equipment, and help cover travel expenses so that we can continue to bring you news that you trust. If you can't become a patron, you can do a one-time donation on Venmo, and your dollars will go to the exact same causes. With your continued support, we can continue to amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices while showing the truth on what is happening in the world around us. Once again, thank you. And we really do appreciate our patrons and our supporters on Venmo. You literally help keep the lights on. Jennifer, let's go ahead and jump into our next section.
Okay.
We're doing a special edition of Malcontented Minutes tonight. It's not a special edition that we want to do, but there has been so much that has come out in the last 3 to 5 days. There have been so many stories about questionable actions by the police or police misconduct or police being arrested or police being sued that it would be impossible to cover everything that has come out in the last 4 to 5 days. We're not going to do a poll tonight because we want to end the show on a high note. So what we are doing is all 10 stories in Malcontented Minutes, and we're going to try to keep to this format of 1 minute to tell, 1 minute to unpack. We're not going to be hard to that rule. So 10 stories, 20 minutes. We have multiple videos of police violence and misconduct tonight. Viewer discretion is advised. I am going to roll the warning. And then, Jennifer, we will go ahead and jump into story number one.
Okay.
I got to say, it feels really weird doing Malcontented Minutes this somber. Story number one takes us to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, where outrage is growing over the police shooting death of Andrew Brown Jr. 3 officers have already resigned. 7 more are suspended. A judge has refused to release the body cam videos to the public, stating it could affect a potential trial of law enforcement officers who opened fire. This short video clip shows what can only be described as militarized police officers arriving at Brown Jr.'s home in a pickup truck. Nothing dramatic in this clip. Sheriff Wooten attempted to deflect calls for more information, stating the entire incident is less than 30 seconds. A body cam video could be shaky and blurry. The family of Brown Jr. and the attorney have seen 20 seconds of one body cam video partially redacted and have universally described the shooting as an execution. An autopsy indicates that Andrew Brown Jr. was shot in the back of the head.
Damn. You know what that truck rolling into the, rolling around the corner, all militarized, kind of looking that way, remind me of what you would see in the deep South, where it's still super racist and there's still people driving around in the back of pickup trucks and they're part of the Klan and they're out just kind of looking for people that don't look like them, so they can go harass them. That's what it looks like to me. Why the hell would you shoot somebody in the back of the head? That is the textbook definition of execution. I have no words, and we're only on story one.
We're not doing unpacks. There's no poll. I forgot to mention that. So we may talk just a little bit more in these stories. Federal government has started a civil rights violation investigation. Jennifer, I think it is very telling, the words of the judge saying this could take potential jurors. And I think it is very telling that 3 officers have resigned, which usually indicates they're getting out before they get fired so they can go work somewhere else as a police officer.
That's gross. Gross.
All right. You got story number 2.
So I know we have a video clip, and I'm just going to preface this briefly, but the police, and I believe it's Loveland, Colorado, are in some hot water right now after laughing at the body cam footage of a 73-year-old woman with dementia who was injured after an encounter with the police when she walked out of a local Walmart with less than $14 of items and not. Go ahead and roll the clip, David.
Police in Colorado are facing a lawsuit after a 73-year-old woman with dementia was arrested. New video released by her attorney shedding light on the situation and the actions of officers during and after the arrest. Deborah Takahara spoke with a representative at the Alzheimer's Association who says people suffering from these conditions need specialized care.
Body cam
Jennifer,
footage.
not exactly sure what happened with the video there. We did not get the meat for some reason.
The meat. Oh, yeah. So I'll talk about it for a second. The body cam footage actually shows them laughing at her. And at one point, one of the officers says, "Do you hear that pop?" That was an injury she sustained, and they laughed at her. There is currently a civil lawsuit that has been filed on her behalf. And part of what is making that actually stronger at the moment is this body cam footage coming out and them now having proof that they knew she was injured.
One of the other things they discussed in that video was did you Mirandize her before you arrested her? nope, nope.
Yeah.
And then there was all like, oops, oh funny, oops.
Yeah, so gross. So gross.
73-year-old Alzheimer's patient.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's just, it was a good arrest. Fist bump me, dude. Literally, it was a good arrest.
Yeah. For less than $14 worth of stolen goods from a goddamn Walmart. And they weren't stolen. She probably just forgot to pay for them because she has dementia.
And apparently it's a common thing when you have dementia to do this. That was part of the clip that for whatever reason didn't play. Thank you for your patience. We apologize to our viewers. I'm going to move on to our story number 3 on our malcontented minutes of police conduct. Stephanie Bottom of Atlanta was driving on her way to a funeral when officers attempted to pull her over for doing 80 in a 70-mile-an-hour zone. Bottom claims she didn't notice the police car behind her because she had the radio playing loudly and she's 66 and just looking at what's going on in front of her. And then this is what happened after they pulled her over. This video's kind of a little hard to watch.
Cut it off. 1072. What have I done wrong?
She is permanently injured with a torn rotator cuff that surgery could not fully repair. Police charge her with a litany of crimes, and all but one, failure to recognize blue lights, were dropped by prosecutors. A federal lawsuit has been put into place because of excessive force. And Jennifer, here's how many times do we hear this story? One of the officers involved has left that police department and has moved on to a new law enforcement job in the federal government.
Wow. Yeah, was the noise at the beginning, they didn't tase her, did they? Or was that just the audio issues?
Just bad audio from one of the microphones on the body cam. There was a little thing on there that says audio issues are on their side.
Okay, so yeah, but why were there did you see all the police cars there? Why were there so many police cars there for somebody who was just going 10 miles over the speed limit?
They say that she drove for 10 miles before she pulled over, which at 80 miles an hour would be about 9 minutes and change.
So that warranted that kind of response?
Apparently, yes. In the eyes of the American police departments, yes. All you have to do, Jennifer, is comply. All you have to do is comply.
Yes, because that works out so well for people if you're not white, right? So did they not realize when they got up to the car that this was like an older woman? Like, what did they think she was doing?
Apparently, I don't know what they would think that she was doing, but once again, we have an officer that is left, which, you know, as we know, when this kind of crap hits the fan and they go somewhere else, they're avoiding that fired on their record. All right, Jennifer, story number 4.
I don't have a lot to say to preface this. I'm just going to say the basic. Deputy in Virginia. Apparently these guys can't tell, like, you know, one thing from another, but mistook a gun for a cell phone and shot Isaiah Brown 10 times.
He is fighting for his life. This video comes with viewer discretion. It's a short clip. This is a really hard video clip to watch.
Yeah.
Want a gunpoint? Show me your hands now! Show me your hands! Drop the gun! He's got a gun to his head. Drop the gun now! Stop walking towards me! Stop walking towards me! Stop! Stop!
Yeah. So again, mistook a gun or a phone for a gun. But I think I've talked about this a little bit before and about, you know, the fear that white people have of becoming the minority and that the minority is going to treat them the same way in which white people have treated minorities. And what we see is kind of emblematic of that, this fear that these people might have a gun and might turn it on them the way they would turn it on the minority group that they're aiming it at. So that's all I've got.
Yeah, Isaiah Brown fighting for his life. He was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher at the time, and he had told the 911 dispatcher he was not armed because the 911 dispatcher asked, and he's like, no, I am not armed. And the officer that shot him is the same officer that drove him home. I want to remind our malcontents, everything that we have shown is in the last 3 to 5 days. This is why we're just chaining these together. We could do a 4-hour show going on a deep dive and unpacking each of these stories. And we've had people sending us messages like on our tips line and all go, hey, you need to cover this. Hey, you need to cover that. And it's just, there's so many right now. It's impossible to cover. And with that explanation, let me go to story number 5. Body cam video of Chicago police shooting Anthony Alvarez has been released. It was released today. This is a really hard video to watch. This is right up there with some of the worst stuff we have shown. Viewer discretion advised.
Hey, drop the gun! Drop the gun! Why are you shooting me? You had a gun!
From drop the gun to shot, 1.8 seconds. We'll never know Alvarez's intent. In order to follow an order to drop the gun, one must secure the gun in order to drop it. Alvarez did not present a threat. He was running from the officer. He never turned towards the officer. And I will remind you, if having a gun is grounds for the police to kill you, well, then guess what, Thin Blue Line fans? You do not live in a society where you have the right to bear arms.
You know, like some people have the right to bear arms, apparently.
White landowners?
White landowners, mentally ill, young white men with a fetishization of My Little Ponies and white supremacy. You know, just people like that. God forbid you have a phone if you're a person of color or any kind of arm to protect yourself.
All right. We're going to do a pause for the cause in the middle of Malcontented Minutes because we're going to take a breath.
Yeah.
We're going to have a little fun because you know what spot's coming up. So we're going to have a little fun and we're going to dive into 5 more. Remember, this has all been in the last 3 to 5 days. A lot of this in the last 24 hours, literally.
Yep.
Black Coffee is a hub for communities and a hub for meeting people, making friends, and understanding.
What Black Coffee is to me is a place to actually call home, a place where Black youth will feel welcomed, where Black families will come and feel like they're at home.
What we're trying to build is more than just coffee. Community is something that we do naturally. We know who's in the community, we know what the deficits are, and we're trying to fix that. We want to bring people together.
My hope is that the phrase grounded in excellence shows up everywhere and that it becomes a movement.
I'm looking forward to hanging out at Black Coffee with my friends and feeling safe.
Black Coffee to me means opportunity for people like me and my other friends and family to come here and do homework safely and hang out and stuff like that.
That is happening. It is happening.
Black Coffee Northwest is located in Shoreline, Washington, around 170th on the west side of the highway. They have amazing coffee. They have amazing merch. They actually have some new, I have to get up there because they have the type of cups for coffee that I love, like a permanent reusable cup, and I've got to get up there to grab one. And they also have, hold on, put it in the comments, potato scones. Got to get a potato scone. It is like a baked.
Damn it.
See, we need a little levity because this is a really heavy section. It is like the best scone you ever, and I'm not a fan of scones. So this is like the best scone you ever had in your life. Had a baby with a baked potato that had cheese and onion. Amazing. All right, Jennifer, we are back into Malcontented Minutes. You have a light story. You have a light story for us. This is a light one.
Yeah, these guys are just kind of weirdly corrupt. So there's 2 Hialeah, Florida officers arrested for giving out fake traffic citations. And I know we have a clip for that. So why don't you go ahead and run that, David, and I'll talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, that's right. So 2 Hialeah police officers have been arrested for allegedly writing fake traffic tickets. We're going to put their mugshots up on the screen there for you. Armando Perez and Ernesto Arias Martinez have both been charged with official misconduct and falsifying public records, 5 counts of each for Perez and 4 of each for Arias Martinez. Now, State Attorney Catherine Fernandez Rundle saying in a statement, quote, "When police officers create false traffic tickets, as we are alleging happened here, they damage the reputation of their own department and the reputations of every police officer working to serve our Miami-Dade community." Now, we're told the victims of the alleged false tickets received multiple traffic citations without ever knowing they had committed a traffic violation.
Yeah, so basically these 2 were writing fake traffic citations. One person actually received 18 citations and had no idea that he'd been pulled over earlier and never received a citation, received 18 in the mail after that. And people were actually getting their licenses suspended for not responding to these citations. So they talk again about it breeding distrust within the departments. We all know police departments have bigger things to be concerned with than this maybe, but it's still like pretty gross. That's all I got for that.
That's gross. That's our old story. That one's from 6 days ago. That's the oldest one that we've got. Jennifer, I got story number 7 here, and this one is from today. Body cam video of Lyman Moses, who was shot to death by Delaware police on January 13th, was released a few hours ago. In this video, police make what's called a pretext stop. Moses is asleep in his car, and they're saying they're doing a welfare check. Even at one point, he says, "We're just here trying to help you out." And then this happens. And this is a really hard video clip to watch.
County Police, I saw you sleeping in here, man.
To make sure you're all right, man.
My mom live right here.
You're sleeping with the car and drive.
Bro, my mom live right here. Why are you walking up like...
You don't need to scream, man. We're just trying to help you out.
I'm okay. My mom live right here. We're just out here, man, looking for stolen cars. We see you sleeping and you got weed sitting right there.
There's weed all over, man. Yo. Here, keep that. Don't fucking do it! Don't do it! Do it! Don't do it!
I was like, all of a sudden stops. Like, am I muted? The police have a 21-foot rule, and we see this in so many shootings where police actively close the 21-foot gap on their own. If police had just let him sleep in his car in front of his mother's house, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah, that was by far, I think, the most troubling of the videos that I'd watched, and not saying a lot. But again, we're back to that same, when we saw the militarized truck roll up to somebody's house. This is how I imagine people in the Klan treated Black people in the South in the post-Reconstruction era. Oh, what are you doing here? We only want to help you. And then they're hanging them. They're lynching them. It's the same kind of bullshit. The police, like right now, the way in which they're behaving, particularly towards Black people and other people of color, is like reminiscent of how the Klan behaves, or at least the Klan, 19th century Klan. They've tried to refashion themselves multiple times since then. But if we're looking at like the roots of the Ku Klux Klan that came after or during the Reconstruction period in the U.S. South, this is the way in which they behaved and treated Black people, newly freed Black people.
To answer the questions over there, yes, Lyman James was killed in the gunshots that you heard in that clip. Jennifer, you've got story number 8, which is another kind of lightweight story.
Yeah, I mean, if you can Sure. It's like, I mean, yeah, comparatively. So Tennessee police officer Seth Schilling has been fired for high-fiving a man after he basically used a racial slur. So he was called to a bar with reports about a man harassing customers using homophobic and racial slurs. So he goes in there and there's video footage taken of him high-fiving the man after he uses a derogatory racial slur. He tried to deny it and say he was only high-fiving the man because the conversation had started to get a little weird. He was a Trump supporter, and he was, high-fiving him for that. But then he came back again, was like, "Oh, I didn't know there was video footage." But part of the reason he got fired too was for violating the 21-foot rule.
Yeah, so the 21-foot rule is if you get in closer than 21 feet of a armed individual, you no longer have enough time to respond if that person goes to attack you. And part of the reason this guy got fired in Tennessee is in high-fiving him, he created an opportunity for that individual to grab his taser, grab his gun, grab onto him. And that was part of the reason they decided to fire him. The whole high five and the racial slur thing played into it. Interesting to me that he did wait around to get fired.
Yeah, maybe he thought he was going to get away with it given the current climate. But yeah, I thought it was also kind of telling that he was like, oh, I didn't know this was being videotaped after his defense initially that, I was only high-fiving him because he's a fellow Trump supporter.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
Okay.
Story number 9. In Alameda, California, 26-year-old Mario Gonzalez was arrested and during that arrest died. Originally, a statement was released that Gonzalez had a, quote, medical emergency, unquote, and died in custody. If this dance music sounds familiar, it turns out this is just like the Adam Toledo story. The Alameda Police Department have left some details out, like how Gonzalez was pinned face down into wood chips and how they put his knee on his back for over 5 minutes. Gonzalez insisting he had taken no drugs, wasn't causing any issues, and wasn't under the influence. And then while this was going on, he had a medical emergency and died. And we have a video clip.
Please don't do what? I don't want to. Please don't shoot me. I'm sorry. Hey, Mario, just talk to me, okay? Yeah. What's your birthday, Mario? It's okay. I forgive you. Sorry. 1984. 1984? What month? No. 94. 1995. 95. I was 94. Okay. Mario. Let me relax. I didn't do drugs.
Emergencies happen when people are like in police custody. Like, there's a lot of medical emergencies that people have when they're in police custody. Like, what's the common denominator there? Do you think it's like actual medical conditions, or is it the police? Because I feel like maybe it's the latter. But also, like, if you're in the midst of a medical emergency and a cop is around, aren't they supposed to provide you with some kind of like assistance? I'm confused.
Yeah, police stopped to talk to Gonzalez because a person called 911 saying he was talking to himself and not making any sense. He didn't present any threat, but he scared his wife.
Yeah.
Don't call 911 for somebody who was having a mental health crisis. This is like, should be just rule number 1. Rule number 2, don't call 911 for somebody having a mental health crisis.
Yeah. Because there are far too many medical emergencies when the police are around.
26 years old.
Let me just get this part over with.
All right. You got story number 10. You can end this, and then we go to the happy story. There is a happy story.
So a Prince George County officer by the name of Daryl Wormworth has been indicted and accused of insulting a teen boy. So this was a 17-year-old young black man who he grabbed by the neck and tried to put into a police car. Unfortunately for him, it was witnessed by two fellow black officers. He was immediately reported by those two officers and then put on suspension 6 days later. He has now lost his job. But it's just like another emblematic of people using, police officers using excessive force against people of color, because that's the theme of the night. And the young 17-year-old black boy is not involved in any cases right now, and there are currently no charges against him as a result. But it's also interesting to note that Wormworth is also facing tax evasion charges right now.
Oh, what an interesting trend there.
Yeah. Isn't Derek Chauvin also facing those?
Yes. $500,000 for hiding almost $125,000 a year in side income. I am in the wrong business, apparently. First degree assault.
Yeah.
Like in Washington State, we don't know what the codes are in that state. In Washington State, first degree assault is attempted murder.
Yeah. No, and that's interesting. And, I think it's real lucky that there were people that witnessed that were willing to turn him in. And they just happened to also be black officers, and they were like, no, we're not letting this stand. So, yeah. Again, probably very, very good news for that young man who was the victim of that assault, that people were there and, saw what was happening.
I know I've said this a couple of times tonight. This is all with the exception of one story. In the last, say, 96 hours, some are as much as 5 days back. I think about half of these stories are literally in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
It's important to highlight each of these stories. We just don't have enough time because they are happening so fast at this point to unpack them. I will say this. This remains your best tool to fight systemic racism and to fight police abuse. And as long as you do not interfere, as long as you do not heckle, as long as you are standing on a sidewalk in a public area, and the Supreme Court says, generally speaking, 50 feet away, it is 100% legal to film the police in their activities. Now, if an officer's like, I'm going to arrest you if you don't stop filming, then you've got to figure out if, hopefully, metaphorically, that's a hill that you're willing to die on in that moment or not. But police don't like this. And this is the one thing that people in this country can do to dismantle the system. You have the power in your hand.
Yeah, it's not the phones they don't like, it's the potential for accountability.
I didn't know I was being filmed.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done that if a camera was on. The ones that are scary, Jennifer, though, are the ones that do this even when the cameras are on. Yeah. Like these officers with this 73-year-old woman or the 66-year-old woman, if that's how they're going to behave, knowing the cameras are running, what happens at 2 or 3 in the morning and they go off?
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Can we move to good news now?
Yes, let's do that.
All right, we're going to do a brief pause for the cause. We're going to go to good news.
Okay.
I want to thank our newest patron, Rex. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. You will help us bring more news and more local in-house content. That's what we have coming up next. And Glenn, thank you so much for the Venmo. Also very much appreciated. And as for little as $5 a month, you too can support independent media and help us create good, great in-house content like this piece.
Yeah, so if you guys remember, a few weeks ago, we had an interview with Colleen Echohawk, who is a Seattle mayoral candidate, and if elected, she would be the first Indigenous mayor in the city of Seattle, and since the office's inception back in the 1860s. But she does this really great thing about Native women's leadership, and she holds a town hall weekly on Facebook and other streaming services, kind of these meetings with women leaders. And so I think it's really important. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that in many Native communities before colonization and even after, women play much larger roles that don't fall within Euro-American or, normal stereotypical roles for women. And so I just was asking her some questions about this towards the tail end of the interview. And I think it's really a nice, positive way to end the show this evening.
Hello, Malcontents. This is Jennifer, and I'm here today with Seattle mayoral candidates, Colleen Echohawk. How are you doing today, Colleen?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be with you.
It's really interesting to me, and I've been keeping tabs on the Native Women in Leadership series that you've been doing, because I don't think most people understand Native women have been leaders for a really, really long time, and this has been very common. So could you just kind of speak a little bit about the significance of that and what you're hoping to accomplish with that program?
So I'm adopted Upper Athabascan on my mom's side, and I grew up in this little town called Delta Junction, and we would go to the village all the time in Tasta Lake. And I grew up seeing matriarchal chief, Katie John. She ran everything. She was in charge. She was the judge. She was the person that took on the state of Alaska for subsistence rights. And I've just seen that modeled in front of me. I have aunties on my Pawnee side who have been just incredible leaders in our communities. And so I'm excited to see the kind of impact that Native women will have on our country. We have Deb Haaland, the Vice Secretary of Interior.
Yes.
I mean, it's taken so long for there to be a Native person in a cabinet role. So I just feel so fortunate to watch it and to see it happen, and that my kids, expect it, that Auntie Deb is there in that office. So it's really exciting. Sharice Davids is going to be on our town hall tomorrow, as well as some local leaders that are just incredible. And I'm excited to get to be a part of this new generation of leadership that encourages and lifts up Native women.
Jennifer, great interview. I know that's a short, it's like the end clip that we had to cut, but the whole interview was great. And it's great to have that end on a high note and talking about the progress that's going on with Native Americans, particularly. Look, I'm not thrilled with the Biden administration, but this is one bright spot in the Biden administration right now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's so long overdue for a Native person to be hold such a huge role within the Department of Interior, and in particular, a Native woman. And so, I think these town halls she does are really great. I think she does them, I think it's every Friday she has them. She had Sharice Davids on there. She's had some really talented and influential local Native women. So if you're interested, check it out on her Facebook page. But it's a really great thing. It's a really great for women, looking for empowerment, but also to learn more about the significant role Native women are playing in moving the bench, moving towards progress and making things happen right now.
Absolutely. And I have felt for a while, if there's anything this country needs, it is more strong women leaders. I think old white guys have, and I could speak for myself in the old white guy department here. I think we've done enough to kind of screw things up. You look at the average age in Congress right now. You look at the age of the two presidential candidates we have, regardless of how I feel about former social media icon Donald Trump. We had two guys deep in their 70s, white guys, as our choice. And, we rejected on both sides. If we go back to 2016 with the Republican Party and we go to 2020 with this, and I know we have people that are Bernie. Bernie's a white guy in his 70s. So
yeah, no, absolutely. But it's a great series, and I hope some of you, if you're interested, will check it out. She's still doing them. Like I said, I believe it's every Friday that she holds them around 6 or 7 o'clock. You can check out her Facebook page for more details, but it's always good to know the great things that Native women are doing in positions of leadership right now.
Absolutely. Malcontents, I want to thank you for your patience tonight. I don't know if you noticed, our audio overall should have been greatly improved tonight. Made a lot of changes from a software standpoint. We've added compressors and expanders and noise reduction and filtering. Jennifer's audio in particular should have been much, much better tonight. And because we were having complaints about echoes, I have mute buttons down here. I'm good at, because we don't have an engineer, so I am chief cook and bottle washer. It's going to take a little getting used to on having the mute buttons. I've become pretty spoiled over the last few months to be able just to talk, but we have worked really, really hard. We continue to try to up the production value. We had some kinks tonight. I think will be worked out a lot better tomorrow because I know how to make these buttons blink when they're muted. So I think I'm going to set them up to blink tomorrow when they're muted, and I think then it's going to catch my attention more. Jennifer, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the Colleen Echohawk piece. I'm really glad that we can end on a good note after everything that is going on. I'll close with this. The system isn't broken. The system works exactly as it was designed to work. The only way for meaningful police reform in this country is not more training from people like Dave Grossman and Killology. It is not hiring more combat veterans, nothing against our combat veterans, but hiring people that are balls of post-traumatic stress disorder who have been shot at and then going, okay, now you're going to police civilians is not the answer. The only answer is to tear this system down beyond the foundation and start over with something new. And Jennifer, I want to close with the last thing. Do not call 911 on a person in a mental health crisis. Don't. Just keep walking, or find a non-emergency phone number to like the fire department or something. Do not call 911. And if you call and they say we are transferring you to 911, then hang up. And when 911 calls you back, you can go, the person wandered off. Because I don't know what else to tell you to do. But you're not going to save a life calling armed officers to come to a person in a mental health crisis and a random person on the street. That's my 2 cents. Jennifer, have a good night. We'll do it again tomorrow.
Good night, everyone.
Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent.
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
He said malcontent Antifa. Fuck you.
You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a